First of all, thank you very much for joining the webinar. I'll make a short introduction of who will be the presenters today. I have the honor and pleasure to have our practice leader, Kiran Patatil, from India today on the call, and also from ServiceNow, senior advisor for the area of field service management with the name Kevin Herring. So Kevin, thank you very much for joining. I'm sure we will have a good webinar, and ideally, if you want to ask questions, please ask them via chat or at the end of the webinar. We try to make it in 30 to 40 minutes max, and hope we will have an interesting session for you. My name is Markus Leb, and I'm the CEO of the presenting company Provi. So Kiran, please.
Yes.
Okay, today's webinar is all about field service management, and explicitly field service management on ServiceNow, where Kiran from a technical perspective will talk, and also Kevin from ServiceNow will also give us some background on where we find field service management in the ServiceNow platform. Why are we talking about field service management? I think in the course of the last 2 years, when we move on, in the course of the last 2 years, we have found out that there was a high demand on delivering services on the last mile. While the COVID pandemic, there have been many cases where field technicians have not been able to fly around the world, where aircrafts were standing on the ground, where large machinery has not been able to be maintained right in time. And also everybody who might have had a broken dishwasher might have found out that getting a field service technician at the right time was quite a challenge. So maybe Kiran, you can move us into the presentation shortly. And I wanted to tell you shortly about field service management over the next 3-4 slides, and then we already do a technical deep dive and show you on how field service management in ServiceNow does work. Why field service management? Let me give you a short overview who is talking to you. We are a global IT service implementation and consulting company. We are Provi. We have delivery centers in the Philippines, in India. We have delivery team and consulting teams on site in Europe, Germany, Austria, Switzerland, and Denmark, in the United States, and we have a huge ServiceNow delivery and consulting team in Brazil. We are ServiceNow Elite Partner. Our core strength and know-how is beside classic advisory, implementation services, and operations, is a process know-how we have gathered over the last 15 years in the area of field service management, and not only in ServiceNow, but also on other technologies. So we are quite well educated and trained and to be able to talk about field service management. When we move on, then let's have a short look. What is field service management? So field service management is basically getting someone with the right skill, with the right tools and parts to the right location at the right time. So this all sounds quite easy and not very sparkling. But basically, field service management is an IT discipline already since many, many years, but has not been on top of priority of many CIOs and service responsible managers. So over the last 2 years, this has changed dramatically, as many people have found out that field service management has been in many different legacy applications, not well connected, not even customer oriented, and customer experience was very bad if we talk about the last mile. Kiran, could you move on, please? So field service management we find in all industries, just to make some examples where we have done implementations and consulting, from life science to manufacturing, energy and utilities, telecom, retail, and also in the services industries. There is very famous brands like a Pepsi, everybody knows, but there is also some other companies where Kieran will be talking about some reference cases and will also explaining us on how we have done the implementation and what were the drivers, why the clients have moved, and what was the gain out of that. Could you move on, please? So basically, we always face the following problem. Field services always has repeat visit waste, technician time, frustrated customers. We all know this. If you have a field service technician has to come to your place and does not have the right equipment or does not have the right skill. So this is basically the last mile on customer experience. So we're all talking about customer experience over the last 2 years. Many commerce implementations have been done, but field service management has predominantly been seen as a cost factor and not as a profit bringer to your company. Please go to the next slide, Kieran. So there has been quite an interesting study of Forrester about 2 years ago, which, if we move on to the next slide, will illustrate very much in detail on how one can gain out of a field service management implementation. Can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. So just to highlight some figures out of this study. So return on investment is normally below 1 year if we do a field service management implementation. Also, the net present value is a figure which in this study has been coming out that always has given positive outcome. And basically, a field service management implementation using ServiceNow as a digital platform has always paid back positively within the first 12 months. And Kieran will make one or the other example together with Kevin. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much. If there is more questions, we're happy to answer, and I'm glad to hand over to Kevin.
Thank you, Marcus. So I think it's really important to note that we have sort of different types of field service that we deal with, and sort of to add to your introduction at the beginning, I've been working in field service for just over 10 years now, so I've seen a lot of different use cases in that time. But sort of broadly, we can split it into two different types. External field service management. So this is where a company will maintain and operate a piece of equipment on the behalf of a third party. And we're all used to this. So if you think of the sort of classic examples of someone coming to your house to install broadband or repair broadband, or someone coming to the office to fix a printer, someone coming to your house to repair a chip in your windscreen. All of these are sort of what we would consider to be external FSM. And those, the end people, this sort of B2C model, the end customers are generally members of the public, so they are your customers, and you'll have sort of contractual SLAs with them. But also there's a sort of perhaps an overlooked part of field service management, which we're seeing a lot these days, which is what we're sort of calling internal field service management. So this is where, in order to operate as a business, you have assets, equipment, and infrastructure that you own, and you are responsible for maintaining. And you still have to send someone out to fix those issues. And in those cases, the customer tends to be your colleague. And some examples of that might be if you are running an office or a store, sort of retail store network, or a campus, or that sort of thing, or any large company that has things, whatever those things are, out in the field that need to be maintained. So those are the sort of the two main areas, and both are, I would say, equally important. Moving on, Kieran. And so but it doesn't really matter whether we're dealing with internal or external FSM. Fundamentally, this is the question we're asking, which is what happens when you can't fix it? And it could be anything. It could be any piece of equipment, or it could be a server, it could be a desktop computer, it could be a fridge, a freezer, it could be anything. And it's also not just about fixing it, it's about inspecting, installing, maintaining, replacing, and all of those things that need to happen with assets out in the field. And so how does FSM help with that? Well, once we have to send someone to do something, we need to know who we can send, who has the right skills, who has the right parts in their vehicle, or do we need to order parts to complete the work? Who has the right time? Are they in the right location? Do they have availability? And all of those things. And all of that work has to generally be completed within some sort of contractual SLA that's been sold as a service contract when you sold that piece of equipment to an end customer, or some sort of notional SLA that you have with your internal colleagues for internal FSM. And so what we'll typically see is you'll have some people out in the field, you'll have someone in the back office. We tend to call that role a dispatcher. And when you have a few people out in the field, 5 or 10 people, then this dispatcher can manage those processes kind of in their head. They have a lot of tribal knowledge. They know all of their engineers. They know, they've met them. They call them up on a daily basis, and they know what skills they have and so on. But once we start to move beyond, 5, 10 engineers, it gets more difficult. And some of the projects I've worked on in the past, actually the biggest one is in Germany, a large German telco, let's call them, who have about 25,000 engineers out in the field. You can imagine the size of that problem, trying to maintain who has what skills, where are they located, where do they live, what parts do they have in their vehicles, all of that sort of thing. And it becomes a massive, complex computer science problem that you sort of need to solve. And that's where FSM really comes in. That's where it can help efficiently assign work to the correct person at the correct time, as Marcus started with in this webinar. All of that happening in an efficient manner, which means you're juggling the responsibilities of making sure your engineers are busy and also meeting SLAs and all of that sort of thing. Moving on. But it sort of doesn't matter. ServiceNow has a solution for that. We have our field service management solution. And what we'll see is that, we sort of touched on this a second ago, is you have a mix of work. You'll have your break fix works, but also you have your inspections, your installations, you have longer term project work, you have planned maintenance work that gets scheduled, quarterly, a year in advance, 2 years in advance, or maybe it's counter based. So you have a piece of equipment, we log a counter every time it's used, and we have to maintain that after 100 uses or 1,000 uses or whatever it might be. And so the ServiceNow field service management solution can take all of that work in. It can again use things like parts, locations, skills, inventory. It can feed in knowledge articles. We can build on the back of workflows. We can, all of that stuff. The ServiceNow platform can deal with that. And so you might be an existing ITSM customer that sends people to fix your own assets after an incident, or perhaps you serve the consumers in that sort of external that we talked about before, or maybe you do more project management work. And again, the ServiceNow platform can handle all of that. It's flexible enough to deal with that those different use cases. And we can master this information within ServiceNow, or we can integrate with other systems. We're often called the platform of platforms. So we can consume data from other platforms, and that data might be, you might store your skills and your availability in an HR system. You might use SAP asset management for your asset management side. You might use a different project management system. And all of that data, all of those, the flow of data can be integrated with ServiceNow or maintained directly within ServiceNow to feed this sort of big field service management engine that drives all of that efficiency out in the workforce, out in the field. Moving on, so just finally to help you understand, if you're familiar with ServiceNow, how field service management sits within our suite of applications or suite of solutions. So we sort of have 4 main pillars within ServiceNow. And field service management sits within our customer workflow, which is the purple box you can see in front of you here. And because it sits in the customer workflow, we have tight overlap with customer service management. So, think of the customer portal, customer raising an issue via a portal, all of that automatically will flow through to the field. But also, as I sort of touched on before, we also have built-in flows with IT service management. So, a company that manages desktop computers out in the various offices they have around in the country, all of that comes from IT service management and also IT asset management. So we have that flow from an asset to an incident to a work order to a task that is out in the field and an engineer completing that work. So hopefully that gives you a bit of an understanding as to the complexity of the FSM world, how ServiceNow fits in with that, and how field service management sits within the ServiceNow platform. Kieran, over to you.
Thank you, Kevin. So now that we have an understanding of what FSM is, the different type of FSM, and what are the main challenges that industries face without field service management, what I would be getting into is providing you a few use cases on how we have helped overcome our customers on those three major challenges for them. So the first business case you can see is FM Global. So FM Global is a property insurance company that required focus on improving their order management, automating their certain tasks and processes, even including agent activities, and also sending the right agent based on the requirement. So again, this is done through dynamic scheduling, which is done automatically in the system. So there were two main areas that the field agent was required for FM Global, which was customer buying a new insurance, and the second one was when they were claiming their insurance. So how we helped is by providing an order management application which captured all send the right field agent, mainly based on location of the customer, the skills that were needed to complete that requirement, and of course the schedule of the agent as well. So all this was done through automatically by the system. The next functionality that was provided was the checklist for the task to be completed by the agent, which had to be done during the process. So we ensured that the agent had all the information needed on the mobile app to either evaluate their property, complete the auditing processes that is needed to evaluate the property, then checking on the claims that were raised by the customer, and probably evaluating the damages and so on. So this is a main high level on what we had provided for FM Global. The second one you can see here is Crisp, which is an energy-based industry. So they needed field agents to provide regular checkups on their motors and their machines and keep an eye on their usages, that is their meter readings and stuff. So the meter readings was important because of their maintenance plan. So when we had to, we had provided a maintenance plan based on the type of machine. So whether it was daily or weekly or monthly or quarterly, there is a checklist of activities that were needed to be done by the agents during the maintenance plan. So when I say maintenance plan based on type of machines, there are certain motors which needs maintenance after 250 hours of running or probably 500 hours of running. So that's an example of the maintenance plan that was provided for them. The other functionality was where the field agent that was checking up the motors daily, weekly, or monthly, quarterly had the option to note down the readings on the application, and the system understands and estimates a time for the next maintenance check for that particular machine or motor. So that was about Crisp features. And the last one is Pepsi. This was a bottling company, and it's a manufacturing company basically. So they mainly used FSM for plant operations and maintenance. So the FSM tool used to keep a check on the bottling life cycle and quality check. So minuscule details like movements of the machine and movement of the machines were calibrated by the field technicians. So the distance and movements were measured at regular periods of time, and if there was any adjustment or time adjustment needed or fix needed, the field agent would make those changes accordingly. And another thing is Pepsi had about 100 technicians where they go and fix the Pepsi machines in bars and other places. So this is another place where they had used the FSM application. Again, you have the right technician at the right place at the right time. So we had used dynamic scheduling for them. So ultimately, we helped the customers increase their service margins, helped improve their customer satisfaction, and ensured that they were optimized and they had reduced their double work. Now, moving to the next slide is, I'll just run through this. The first one is RACQ, again, few more use cases. This was integration that we had done with FSM tool with other third-party tools. So the contracts and customer information was coming from another CRM tool, which was either pulled or pushed from that tool into FSM tool. We had provided dynamic scheduling in real time. So if there was any car issues or breakdowns that happened at that point of time, assistance was provided on ad hoc basis. So dynamic scheduling was done on real time. So RACQ is a roadside assistance, which is similar to AAA services. And finally, once the field agent has completed the work, the travel and the labor cost is calculated in the FSM tool. And that information is moved to another third-party tool for invoicing the customers. So this was mostly about trying to let you know that FSM is, you can integrate it with other third-party tools. Then Tenant is cleaning equipment manufacturing company. Here they wanted to track their inventory and their supply chain of equipments to the customers, and also to ensure that they were managed and maintained from time to time. So we had provided the FSM application to them as well to ensure that they had inventory updates and information about their supply chain and install base. Then the last one is UltraDent. So here they repaired medical equipments like or surgical appliances like LED lights, protective eye cares, ultrasonic appliances, and so on. So this company was not using any FSM tool at that point of time. So they needed basically order management, schedule management for their repair functionalities, tracking their deliveries of their repair products, even information of their warehouse inventories were done in the FSM application. So they also used, from what I believe, they were also using it to track delivery and installation at the customer location. So that is install base again. So all in all, what we are trying to say is that we understand the various needs that are needed in industries, and we also understand the pain points that comes without having FSM in those industries. So that is about the use cases. Now I'm just moving on to the offerings that we provide on ServiceNow FSM. So our basic audience is two types of audiences. So this is customers with existing CSM application and they do not have, existing CSM application with unused FSM licenses. So our first audience is customers with existing CSM application with unused licenses, FSM licenses. And the second one is customers who would like to implement CSM and FSM fresh. So we are providing a quick and easy implementation of FSM in ServiceNow. So we have three offerings. We have Silver package, we have Gold package, and Platinum package. Presented here is the Silver package. We would perform the gap analysis and evaluate the current state, and based on the data that we have gathered, we would analyze and propose the to-be state for the customers. This would actually help take decisions on how they would want to implement and what features they would like to implement in FSM. Then we would then help in configuring end-to-end implementation of work order lifecycle, advanced work assignment, asset management, dispatch, scheduling, mobile configurations as well. Now, moving a little into mobile configurations, we would cover route optimization, work orders, tasks, part searching, stockroom and inventory, and of course, technician safety check. So this is an addition we have added for the workers for on-site, as well as because of the pandemic, we've added this additional feature. Then we have the reports and dashboards, which would provide information for all types of users. So this can be the customers, it can be for managers, it can be for the technicians, it can also be for the stakeholders, and etc. So after the implementation is completed, we would cover the onboarding, or onboarding, that is training and hardware induction for the end users and technicians. So here we would help them onboard and give them end user training on how to use the mobile application. And last is our special feature, which is BYOB, which is build your own bundle. So based from customer to customer requirements and based on the verticals that they are in, they would require additional features which are not mentioned in the implementation part. So there we are providing a list of additional features where they can select what they would like to choose for their particular package and which would suit them for their particular vertical. Sorry. Now moving on to the next slide, which talks about the gold and platinum. So this includes all that was mentioned before, which is health check, gap analysis, consultation, reports, onboarding, and BYOB in the silver offering, plus configurations under radius-based scheduling for the technicians, mobile publishing, universal request, and analytics. Then the last one is our platinum offer. So this would include all the packages or all the features in gold offering. Provide augmented reality feature, which is our partnership with Care AR. So we would help in configuring end-to-end Care AR automations and reports, dashboards, and all the features related to Care AR. So yes, so that is pretty much about the offerings that we provide. So back to you, Marcus.
Thank you very much, Kieran. Very condensed, 27 minutes. So very well done.
Thank you.
From our side, we would like to answer questions. If there are questions, you can directly type them in. On the other side, we will also distribute, of course, and upload this webinar on YouTube, and everybody who has participated will get the link to maybe review or distribute if required. And there is also the contact information of our sales team about this topic. If you want direct to get in contact with Kieran, with Kevin, or myself, we would be happy to talk to you.